Welcome to the Service to Syndication podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication podcast. We want to provide value to you in your investing business. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlowe, and I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, and skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me top-notch real estate investor, Mr. Brian Briscoe. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. As always, please, if you get some value out of this interview, if you get some type of mindset shift, if you learn new skill, new information, or receive inspiration or motivation to go out and make some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, and share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who shared this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, I have with me Mr. Brian Briscoe. He is the founder and CEO of Streamline Capital, a real estate investment company focused on helping individuals earn high risk-adjusted returns through apartment investing. Since 2018, he's owned over 1,500 apartment units through various partnerships throughout the United States and has successfully exited 9 properties to date. He is an apartment investing coach and mentor, the director of the multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans, and the host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. He retired from the U.S. Marines after 20 years of service in 2021. All right, Brian. Well, welcome first off. The first thing that I like to do with my guests is have them to walk us through the real estate journey in 75 seconds or less, and we'll just start to unpack a lot of that.
75 seconds or less. All right. Bought my first investment property in 2007, a single family home. It was right at the peak. And the reason I bought an investment property was, I was in active duty, moving all over the place, and buying a single family home, where I live just didn't make sense. And so wanted to have the benefits of real estate and couldn't buy my own house. Like, all right, let's buy a rental, rent it out. Did that a couple of times, had 3 total single family properties, purchases, rentals, and then eventually caught into multifamily. In 2018, got into a coaching program. And between 2019 and today, like you read in the bio, 1,500 units. Current focus is Salt Lake City, which is my hometown. We just closed on our 4th property in Salt Lake City for a total of 150 in Salt Lake, but that's kind of more of a recent thing. That's did I do that in 75 seconds?
Actually, you did it in 74. Perfect.
My internal clock's going pretty well.
Yeah, for so early in the morning, right? All right, Brian. So, okay, you're the founder of Streamline Capital, real estate investor, podcast host, frequent podcast guest, social media contributor, conference speaker, and let's not forget the most important job of being a husband and
Hmm.
father. Where do you find the time?
It's a good question. I mean, the as far as, Streamline, most of my activities, work related, are all around multifamily real estate. So they kind of all line up. It's um with the podcast, is that helping my coaching program? Is that helping my real estate business? The answer is yes. And so a lot of it is just alignment right there. So, the things that I do, there is a fair amount of alignment. So, but I am working real estate full time. I retired in 2021 and I haven't had a job since. So it's been almost 4 years, and this is essentially my day job. So that's really where I get the time now. This is just what I do.
Nice. So now, what prompted you to join the military?
September 11th, really. I was thinking of, I was actually a reservist first. And what prompted me to get into the reserves was I was I wanted to be a math professor, okay? And the story behind that is I was good at math and I liked teaching. And so you put the two together and it's like professor, right? And so what prompted me to look into the reserves was my first week as a graduate student. I mean, you have to have a PhD to teach math or be a college professor in most places. So, it was going to take a lot of school. But I remember as a graduate student, I got invited to the department picnic. It was professors and graduate students, and it was probably the most awkward thing I have ever been to, right? I mean, um, the college professors were all really, not very social. Their social skills were terrible. And I had the realization that, if I follow in their footsteps, I'm going to end up just like these guys, and that scared me. And so I was looking for something besides, academics to help develop myself. I was probably 23, 24 at the time. Um, and over the next couple of years, I decided that enlisting in the Marine Reserves would help out with that, and so I enlisted in May of 2001. Did boot camp over the summer, and then the World Trade Center, September 11th happened like weeks after I got out of boot camp. I already had a college degree. And so from there it was, I know I'm going to get called up. I'm in college right now. And really going active duty for me was trying to take control. I didn't know when I'd be called up. I mean, we had every reserve unit had, pretty much a 100% chance of getting called up, at that point. And part of what was going through my head was just looking at my college schedule. There's some classes that are only offered once a year, some classes that are offered every other year. And I was looking at sequencing, and I was just kind of realized that if I get called up during the wrong time of the year, a 6-month deployment can put me back 2 years on my schooling. And so really what was going through my mind is, if I'm going to go, you know, to Iraq or Afghanistan, this is actually before Iraq was a thing. If I'm going to go to war, number one, I want to do it on my terms, and number two, I'd rather be a second lieutenant than a private. Or private first class is what I was at the time. So that's what got me into. I went to officer candidate school in January of 2002 and was active duty ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically you weren't really in the reserves, but a hot minute before you just transitioned right over that.
Boot camp and one drill weekend is what it was. I had my first drill weekend, um, yeah, with the reserves, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember those times, well, 2001. I finished my active duty service. I'd done 8 years at that point, and then and I was in the reserves at the time,
Mhm.
so I could finish out my 20. And yeah, that day, that happened. I still didn't think of it, I just wasn't there yet. But then once they start calling up troops, I knew eventually, my number would be called for me to, go and do a
Mhm. Yeah.
deployment otherwise as well. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what made you, okay, I understand, you're in the military. You said second lieutenant. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So you bought that first house, but I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that was for you and your wife to live in at the time?
No, actually, no, it wasn't. So first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. I was there from 2003 to 2006. And, at the time, you hear this, and I think it might be true for a lot of people, but people say, buying a home is the most important investment you'll ever make. There's people who say stuff like that.
Right.
I don't believe that's actually true. I did at the time. I was looking, okay, we're in Okinawa for 3 years, and I wasn't able to buy a house to live in there. There was just no option to do it. And then I got orders to Southern California, and I started looking for homes in Southern California. And mind you, this is 2006. What I was really facing was, I could buy a 900 square foot condo and pay $1,000 more than my BAH, for that payment at the time, or I could rent a 2,000 square foot home and end up with part of my BH in my back pocket at the end of every month. When we were looking at home ownership, I really wanted to do it, but like I said, the numbers were just upside down in San Diego at the time. And fortunately, I had the sense to rent instead of try to squeeze my family into a 900 square foot condo. So along the same lines, I started thinking, well, if I can't live in the house that we own, I might as well try to find something that I can buy, put renters in, and build some equity. So we started looking in my hometown, right around, northern Utah, just north of Salt Lake. And after, months of kind of searching, my father-in-law gave me a deal I couldn't refuse. He basically said, "Hey, I know you're trying to buy a house, and, I haven't really told you this or anybody this yet, but, I want to build a house in southern Utah, and that's where I want to retire." He's like, so I was planning on refinancing this house, working for another 2 years, and then selling this house and moving. So that was his plan. He's like, it's the same to me. He's like, it'll actually be easier for me if you just buy the house right now, and I didn't know how to look up numbers. I knew I had a deal in my hand, and he also said that he would rent it back for at least the first year. It's like, well, I've got a house, I've got renters, everything's perfect, and so that was my first investment property. I was able to use the VA loan from a technicality when I had gotten my last driver's license. Renewed my driver's license when I was kind of like in that in-between phase, between I'm going to boot camp soon. I had moved out of an apartment and everything else. And my wife and I spent, I think, 2 weeks living at her parents' house before I went to boot camp. And I happened to renew my driver's license then, and I put my father-in-law's address on my driver's license. And so when I went to buy that house, they saw the address. I asked if I can do a VA loan. They saw that address on my driver's license, and they're like, "Yeah, you can use a VA loan for this one." It was also my home of record on all my military stuff, because that's where I filled out all the information. And we were living at an apartment when I filled out all the military forms, but I didn't know what they were going to use that address for. And I'm like, I'm not going to put an apartment address down here because I know I'm not going to live there. So anyway, long story short, that address ended up being my home of record. It was on my driver's license. We never lived in the property after buying it, but just because of all that, the lender looking at the VA says, yeah, you can use a VA loan on this one. So I got a VA loan on that first property. The second property that we got was a year later after the crash. So real estate values slid significantly.
Yep.
And this time we did owner occupant. That those 900 square foot homes were now on sale. And we ended up buying a 3-bedroom townhome in the same neighborhood that we were renting in. Used an FHA loan for that one, and then couldn't, just because of numbers and how lenders work, they wouldn't give me another loan. I couldn't find a lender to give me another loan for a while. Anyway, that's
Wow. All right.
yeah.
So when did you decide to transition? What made you decide to transition into multifamily?
At this time, I think I was had 2 rental properties, getting into the third. And I was on a deployment, and this is probably 5 years, 6 years after we bought the second house, and I was at the point where I wanted to start ramping real estate back up. I'd realized that I had my TSP, and I put more money into my TSP than I put into my real estate. But I had more equity in my real estate than I had money in my TSP, right? Started scratching my head. I'm like, these real estate properties are just doing absolutely amazing. And so I'm on this deployment, and deployments for me were either so busy I didn't have time to do anything, or so boring that I'm looking for things to do. And this was one of the boring ones. And so I didn't have Wi-Fi very frequently, but every time I was in a place where I had Wi-Fi, I would download every book on real estate that I could find. And I'm talking single family real estate. I accidentally downloaded a book on buying apartments. And that's really what started it. I probably what I was doing is I was just going through Amazon, and I had a Kindle, and I had my Kindle attached to Wi-Fi, and I'm buying things on Amazon and loading up my Kindle.
Yeah.
And it was basically any book that's less than $5 that's talking about real estate, I was just buying. And one of them was about apartments, and I get back to my no Wi-Fi zone and start reading through it. And I finally get to the point to where that's the only book left that I hadn't read. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll read this one. And it just kind of opened up a door in my mind. I didn't think that I was able to buy an apartment complex, but this book just really made it sound like it was accessible. And that kind of changed the game for me. And it was just all of a sudden, the next time I'm sitting in Wi-Fi zone with my phone, I'm downloading everything I can on apartments. That deployment was 2016 to 17. I get home from that deployment, and I just start binge listening to podcasts, anything, buying books, anything I can do to learn more about multifamily. So 2017 is when I got home from that deployment. 2018, I got into a coaching program. 2019, bought my first 3 apartments actually, and then added, a handful every year since.
Nice. So needless to say, that was a great mistake. Probably one of the better mistakes that you had, accidentally downloading that multifamily book to your Kindle.
Yep.
Yeah. And for those of you that are listening, he used an acronym TSP. That's the Thrift Savings Plan for military and civilian governmental employees, equivalent to your 401k if you're a civilian, just to clarify that so you guys can understand. Yeah. So now, are you in any other asset classes other than multifamily?
Just multifamily. I've thought about it a lot, but I like the multifamily model. I'm an operator, so we're the ones that are managing the properties, and I want to be an operator. And there are people that raise money, and that's a little bit more fungible. I mean, they can move from one asset class to another with relative ease. I just decided from the beginning that there's goodness in apartments. There's always going to be demand for apartments. It's a pretty steady and stable investment. So yeah, we are essentially just apartments.
Got it. Yeah. And that's great, because you're choosing to focus and key in one specific area and become a master of craft in that one specific area. And that's great. Now, what markets are you investing in?
Right now, only Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any particular reason why outside of that's where you're from originally?
Oh, I mean, it's a great market to invest in. I mean, it's topping the charts in population growth. It's topping the charts in economic growth. A lot of goodness is coming out of northern Utah right now, and roughly 85% of Utah's population is in the greater Salt Lake metro. And so you got roughly 3 million people. So there's plenty of stuff happening there, plenty of apartments to purchase, and there's good enough volume there that we can always be buying stuff. Yeah, it's got amazing growth, and it's a compact enough area that we can consolidate operations. I won't call this a mistake, but one of the inefficiencies with the first several properties we purchased, at one point we had 8 properties in the state of South Carolina, but the cities in South Carolina are all spread out, and so we literally could not drive and visit every single property in a single day. and so that ended up being really inefficient. It'd take, like a 2-day, 2 or 3 day tour, depending on how much time we spent on each property to visit every property, and so if you're managing a portfolio and it takes 2 days a month to visit all 8 properties, that's just really inefficient. And so, one thing I like, Salt Lake City, fairly compact. We have 4 properties right now, but I mean, there's 3 of them that are within put a point on the map and draw a circle, a 3-mile circle. All 3 of those are inside that circle. And then right now we have one outlier that takes 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute drive, right? So part of that is just, I know the area well. It's growing fast. There is a supply and demand imbalance, and it allows me to consolidate. There's enough stuff there where I can buy a lot of apartments and kind of consolidate operations.
Yeah, that's great to be able to like key in one specific area. So now, what class of assets are these? Are they B class, C class, D class, A class?
C's and B's is what we buy. I like to be on the top of C class, if that makes sense. And essentially, I mean, inside each asset class, there's a range of there's a range. A B minus versus a B plus looks a lot different. A C minus versus a C plus, there's even a much larger difference. I like to, if I'm buying a C, I want it to be kind of a C plus so that we can do some renovations and move the needle into a B. So right now, I would say I own 2 B class properties and 2 C class properties. And the goal is to move those C class properties into that B class category.
Okay. Now, with that, how are you finding these deals?
We're largely using brokers, to yeah, all 3 of these all 4 of those came through brokers, and with all the other properties in my portfolio, those were all broker deals as well. I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense to do anything else because brokers spend essentially all day, every day on the phone talking with owners. But yeah, I use brokers to make sure that basically it's a time saving. I'm leveraging somebody else's time is how that works.
Yeah, because as you know, there are several trains of thought out there with that. Some of them are, yes, go straight to the broker. And some of them are go direct to seller.
Yeah.
Finding those needle in a haystack sometimes, but I like that approach, and neither approach is wrong. It just depends on whatever your business model is. And so you've chosen that route, which again, like you said, it saves time. It's time and efficiency because these brokers, they have the tools to reach out, make the calls, as many calls as needed for them to get, that owner on the line and strike the deal. And all you have to do, only thing has to happen from that point, from your perspective, is have the numbers to line up to where, or whatever it is for your business.
Yeah, and the type of properties we're buying, it's really hard to do direct to owner anyway. I mean, we're buying properties that are the one we just bought was one of the smallest properties in my portfolio. I mean, Salt Lake's not a cheap market. A $6 million property. We closed on an 18 million one last year and a 10 million the year before. So when you start looking at these deal sizes, they're not mom and pop. We did buy one from a mom and pop, but we're not buying from mom and pop owners. And most owners understand that if they want the best purchase price for their asset, they're going to have to go through a broker. And even with the commission they're paying the broker, most owners understand that. And so, if you're trying to buy a 50 unit or an 80 unit apartment complex, direct mail, number one, if you actually reach the person, they're going to look at this and say, gosh, if I want to sell, I'm going to pick up the phone and call a broker. And the second thing is, there's so many different LLCs involved. I mean, the last one we purchased, we have 4 different LLCs associated with this property. Each LLC, if they're trying to find me, what we have registered everywhere is a registered agent, who is supposed to screen our mail for us, So if they just went through the public records and said, hey, let's see who owns this apartment, so somebody's trying to direct mail us, that letter is going to go to our registered agent, whose only job is to provide an address for us and, make sure our LLCs are always up to date, So if they get a piece of mail, they're going to open it up. If it's a solicitation, it goes straight in the garbage. If it's, something from, a government agency or looks like it's a legitimate communication, they forward it to us. So bottom line, in the size of properties that I'm looking at, brokers are really the only way to go.
Okay. Now, let's transition to your most recent acquisition. How was it acquired? Was it through syndication, joint
Mhm.
venture, pocket Bank of Briscoe? How'd that happen?
Yeah, it was a syndication, and we've done most of our deals in syndication. I think we've done two JVs before out of all those units, but yeah, we syndicate. So we got the project, or we got the listing from a broker. This one was off market. We had looked at it first time in 2023, actually, right? And so I liked the deal, I liked the location, but we weren't able to come to terms with the owner. It was off market at that time, and then we ended up getting something else under contract. But fast forward a year later, I'm talking with the broker, and I'm like, okay, we just finished our last project. I'm ready for something, or we're ready for something else. And he's like, hey, remember that property? He's like, I think the owners still want to sell it, and so. We worked up an offer, put an offer in front of the owner, and negotiated a contract. So it was a syndication. It was a $6 million purchase, 6.1, but $6 million purchase. And it's a 1980s build property. They're all townhomes, which, townhomes almost always rent for more. It's that they have the little back patio that's private. And you walk on this particular layout. There, you walk out the back fence, and there's two covered parking spots that belong to each individual unit. So much more desirable for people to live in townhomes, and so consequently, they rent for more and they sell for more. So, and end of the day, it's a 1980s build. It hasn't had a full renovation since 1981 or 83 is when it was built, but hasn't had a full renovation. There's a couple of units that still have shag carpet. I mean, this is kind of what it looks like. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a renovation on this thing. We got a pretty decent sized pot of money.
We know you're going to like this episode, so please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when the next episode drops.
Do external, internal renovations, whole 9 yards, and be done with it. So looking at about a 5-year hold. However, we'll look at selling as soon as our renovations are done and kind of just keep our finger on the pulse of the market. And if we're done with the renovations and it doesn't look like it's a great time to sell, we'll hold it a little longer. If it is a great time to sell, we'll sell it.
Nice. And how is this one being managed?
We use a third-party property manager on everything. Same company in all three, which makes things a little bit easier. But yeah, that's really the way we do it. I don't really want to be into the management game right now. I mean, we do spend, now at least about 30 minutes per week on each property on a Zoom call with our property managers. So I mean, we're not ignoring it, but yeah, we have third-party property management and we're managing the managers.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Because, I was going to ask that, like, how often are you meeting with them? But yeah, weekly is definitely doable and recommended, especially during a takeover.
Yeah.
After you acquire new property, you want to definitely make sure that you're meeting with the property manager so that they can carry out that business plan. Now,
Yeah.
do you recommend, like, once it's stabilized, right? Do you see yourself maybe not meeting with them every week, maybe a little less, or what do you think?
We're gonna do every week. It's so easy for things to go downhill, right? I mean, we've had a couple. I mean, I've seen a whole lot in my portfolio, and we've tried, less frequent meetings, but it is really easy for things to go from a really great position to, oh my gosh, what's going on here? The way you get there is by kind of relaxing, by becoming complacent. And so we're going to keep on doing it every week. We've had a couple of properties where we have gone from, hey, this property is going really well, to we got to do something to fix it within a couple of months. And the way that works is 5 people move out, 4 people move in, and you do that for 3 months straight. And I mean, property managers like, yeah, we had 4 move-ins, we're doing great, And the next month, hey, we had 4 move-ins, we're doing great. And if you stop really pushing the property manager, you're really kind of reliant on, what that property manager's, what they're going to default to. And, human nature, you kind of put the work, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil mentality. So we're not going to back up and start meeting, once a month or every other week. We're still going to do an every week meeting. Once the property's stabilized and everything's going well, the meetings do get shorter. I mean, we still book a half hour, but if everything's going well, it's just like, okay, move-ins, move-outs, lease prices, maintenance requests, we just kind of really quickly, I mean, they send us a weekly report and we review the weekly report, and we're basically just making sure that everything is on track, once that's done. And unfortunately, the property managers oftentimes need a lot of hand holding. I mean, just this last week, we've got an 80 unit with 2 vacancies, which isn't terrible, but they've been vacant for a while, and it's just like, okay, why have these been vacant for a while? And so we did a real quick audit of, where they're telling us they're leasing them. They're like, hey, we're advertising these on 3 different websites. Hop onto Facebook and it's like, I don't see the property listed here. Oh, it's there. And they type the address in, right? So when we're looking for a pin on the map, it's not there, and it's just like, well, I'm looking at it. There's no pin on the map where the property is, Oh, okay. We looked at another website and it's not on the second website. It's like, well, you don't even have it listed here. It's like, so, I mean, they do make mistakes, on another property, we did the same thing. And we pull up the Facebook listing and it's listed at $99 per month. The person who input it missed a couple of digits. It's not 99 a month, it's 14.99 a month, right? I mean, just looking at the property management companies, if you do step back and kind of let them run things, what you're going to end up with is, they're not going to have the sense of urgency that we have, and they're not necessarily going to be checking their own work, like we do. So yeah, it does take, constant follow-ups with them. I wish I could just set it and forget it. But yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still the business owner. Yes, you may not be doing the day-to-day management, but you are doing the asset management piece of it. And, and I get it, a lot of property management companies, unfortunately, have to have their hand held throughout the process because, yeah, I can definitely see property management companies getting a little lackadaisical, or if you're definitely not pressing them.
Yeah. And I mean, the property managers are managing multiple properties too, so it's, if I said, if you're not the squeaky wheel, if you're not forcing them to look at things once a week, maybe they're not, and if another owner is, really writing them about occupancy, where are they going to put their focus on leasing efforts? Yeah, we want to be that constant voice in their ear saying, hey, this unit's been vacant for 14 days. That's a long time in my book, But yeah, without that, I mean, you mentioned takeover. During takeover, we're probably communicating. I mean, we still have a weekly meeting, but we're communicating much more frequently than that. Especially when we're doing renovations. During the takeover period, like last Friday, I spent a couple hours on the property with the property management team. Our first couple of calls, they're not 30 minutes each, they're an hour each, and it's a lot more time intensive in the first couple of weeks. And then when renovations are going, there's just a lot more coordination that's happening. But yeah, once it's stabilized, we're still doing every week. It's just that, instead of spending a couple hours a week on the property, we're spending maybe a half hour with the property manager. Of course, they're sending us a report and we're reviewing the report. So we're spending maybe 1 to 2 hours on each property between reviewing the reports and talking with a property manager.
Okay. Now, with this particular one, I know, like you mentioned, the shag carpet, like what type of value adds are you guys going to do for this particular asset?
This one is probably going to be one of the more comprehensive value adds that I've done. There's no single thing here that I haven't done before. Right. But this property needs just about everything. Right. And so, there's a pothole. I don't know if it's too big to really be called a pothole. I mean, there's a couple of spots. The entire asphalt is just in really bad condition. There's after it rains, there's almost a lake in the parking lot with one of them. But so we're repaving the entire parking lot. There's a lot of the concrete work that needs to be redone, like the concrete entry from the street to the parking lot. That needs to be redone. The concrete pads under the dumpsters, we're redoing all of those. So a lot of groundwork that I don't like doing, we just have to do. The fencing behind the townhomes, the patio fencing, that's all going to get torn down and redone. 4 out of the 6 roofs have to be redone. So when we start looking at the condition the property was in when we bought it, there's a lot of work that just last couple owners haven't done. When you got 30-year-old roofs on a property, yeah. So just on the exterior, there's a whole lot of work that we just, some of it we just have to do, some of it we want to do. I mean, we are painting the property as well. The property right now, the units do not have central air. We're putting central air in too, which that's not cheap. That's a significant yeah, that's a significant expense there. And then on the interiors, new flooring throughout, new paint. We're doing, the 5.5-inch baseboards, which is, looks really, really nice. Doing quartz countertops, and then gonna be putting new appliances in most of the units. I mean, it's a 40-year-old property. We have some units that have 40-year-old appliances in there, so yeah, as far as what we're doing, it's the most comprehensive one that I've ever done, but that's just because sometimes you buy properties and it's like, hey, the roofs are good, the parking lot's good, we just need to do, everything else. On this one, it was just like, okay, roofs, yeah, we pretty much everything is due for a rehab right now.
Yeah. So have you guys found any surprises? Have you had any surprises yet with this particular one that you didn't anticipate?
Not yet, but we've only owned it for I had a drink and it's not working out for me. Yeah, we've owned it for 2 weeks now, three actually, and we haven't started any of the work, and so, last week was walking it with the property manager and the general contractor, saying, hey, this is this. Right now we're working on like the final bids. We should have, contracts from the contractors here real soon, but most of the surprises come, after you start doing stuff, when you tear up the floor and you see, oh my goodness, look at that. But yeah, since we haven't done that yet, we haven't found really any of the issues.
Got it. Now let's focus on your team a little bit. There's you. Who else is on your team?
We do a lot of partnering with other people right now, so my team, there's 3 people that are officially Streamline Capital. It's me, it's Steven, and it's Romina. So that is Streamline Capital, but we do rely on a lot of partners. So, we have a husband and wife couple in Southern California. They're doing a lot of the asset management for us, and they're raising capital with us as well. So Streamline Capital is very lean, and I want to keep it lean. And we're right now we're kind of relying on other people in the general partnership to be able to do each individual property. So yeah, that's how we're doing it. And I mean, for people listening, if you want to get into a GP and you like Utah, give me a call. I think that's worth mentioning there.
Yeah. Yeah, being streamlined, no pun, I guess pun is intended.
Yeah, that's why it's called Streamline. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, because you can keep your bottom line, or not only your bottom line, but you can keep the focus right there where it needs to be. You have your eye on the ball. You're not relying on, I don't know, some vice president of contracting or whatever to come back to you. So you really have the pulse of the business right there in the forefront. And yeah, totally get it.
Yeah. And it's we do have to rely, I mean, partnerships can be, there's pros and cons to both directions. I'd have a little bit more control if everybody worked directly for me, so my asset manager is a partner in the deal and does not directly, work for me. Right. And so, I lose a little bit of control there, but what I gain is, so Streamline Capital, I've got employees, right? They're not my partners, but what I gain is I don't have to pay salaries, and so it is a pro and con. There's pros and cons both directions. I think, 3 to 5 years from now, I want to have everybody on payroll. But, right now, we are running things lean. We use the same general contractor for just about everything. And, one of the benefits of that is there's a lot less for us to do as far as the construction management because they basically assign somebody to do that for us. It's like, and if they're doing all the work, they're doing all the sequencing, they're managing all the crews, and that saves me time in a way where I don't have to pick up the phone and say, general contractor, hey, contractor number one, you're doing the roofs. Is it okay if somebody else is doing the asphalt at the same time? I don't have to do all of that. And so we are doing what we can to leverage other people to keep my team lean. And eventually, though, we will be bringing a lot of that stuff in-house. Eventually, instead of having a partner who's doing the asset management, I'll have an employee or a team member that's doing the asset management.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the purchase price. I think you said 6.16 million. What was your raise on that?
3 million, just 3.1.
Okay. What type of financing did you guys get on this? Was this agency, CMBS?
We got a bridge loan on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let me ask you this, because you have multiple properties. You've been in, like you said, 1,500 assets. Are most of your investors retail investors, or are they pretty much real estate professionals?
We largely retail investors. We don't have any institutional money at all. So I guess 100% retail investors is what we have.
Now, what's your vision for Streamline Capital?
Want to get to the point to where we own, several thousand units in Salt Lake City, just slowly ramp things up. Right now the market's a little difficult to buy stuff. It's a little bit difficult to raise money, but we're working on improving our capital raising capabilities right now. And so the goal is to buy 2 or 3 properties this year. We've already got one. Actually, well, the goal is 3 or 4 total, so 2 or 3 more. We have a unit count that we want to get to overall, but essentially, I want to build Streamline Capital to the point to where it's a legitimate business and runs without me. That's the ultimate goal, and so I did choose to hire people, after several successful exits. Fortunately I had a large enough bank account that I could just hire people. But yeah, I'll keep on hiring people and try to find some long-term partners through these hires. And the way I'm looking at it, employment is kind of like my tryouts for a partnership. That's essentially, like I said, I want the business to run without me. So I've got one guy that I think is going to be long term. I've had several employees that didn't make it a full year, but the goal is to start assembling a team that can eventually run the show without me. 12 years from now, the goal is for me to just back out and not work ever again.
That's always the main goal for most people, not to have to work ever again. So how do you ensure that your acquisition and asset management strategies align with your long-term vision for growth and investor success?
It's really in the acquisition. I mean, to make sure your acquisition and asset management's aligned, you just make sure you're acquiring things that work for your big plan, and so, if we look at an opportunity that doesn't fit our overall plan, we're not going to pursue it, so, for example, I had a broker send me a property yesterday. I looked at it. It's, first thing I noticed is there's plywood over all the windows. It's completely unoccupied, and, it's in a great area and it has a lot of potential, but it's not what we do, and so instead of digging into that and saying, how can I make this work? It was more of this doesn't meet our criteria. And, I sent an email back to the broker and said, yeah, this isn't what we do. This is what I want to see. And so we use all of these as opportunities to communicate with the broker. The truth is that email was probably sent out to the entire distribution list. And so we're responding to it and saying, hey, I love the area. The size of this asset is about what we're looking for. It's a little bit too heavy of a lift, though. We don't do heavy lifts. This is what our buy box is. So we just kind of use that as an opportunity to kind of reset their framework. And okay, yeah, that's right. I know Brian wants this. I know Streamline Capital is doing that. So Yeah, as far as the alignment, we're just really picky about what we look at. And if it's an obvious not in our buy box, we don't even look at it.
Yeah, yeah. But the great part about that is even though it was not in your buy box, you got
Mhm.
back with the broker just to
Yeah.
let them know that, hey, this just not in our buy box at this time, too heavy of a
Mhm.
lift for us. And you reaffirmed them like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And but at the end of the day, you got in contact with them. So next time they'll bring you something more in alignment with what your business profile is.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Now, how do you measure success beyond financial returns, whether through community impact, resident experience, or long-term sustainability?
That's I mean when we look at each property, we want to make communities better, and that's one thing that we are looking at. We don't want to do a renovation that's going to come undone in a couple of years, so but yeah, we want to provide clean, safe housing for residents, and we want properties that we can be proud of. We are selective on what we buy, and one of the criteria I tell my acquisitions guys is, if when you first get a property, when you open up the offering memorandum or whatever the broker says, the first question I want you to ask is, would I want to own that property for 20 years? But yeah, we are doing a lot of value adds, and we just want to have something. So as far as the community, we are making the properties better. We're typically focusing on areas that are improving, and there's a lot of those, and so we want to be part of what makes areas better, and that's really it. And then, I mean, other impacts, obviously money helps us do a lot of other things. I'm one of I donate to certain causes, or there's certain things that I like to do. Doing well financially helps you do a lot of other things. So that's really it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Having the finances help you do good in the community, and that goes a long way. Wow, man, how time has flown. But before we get out of here, let me ask you, how do you get back to the military community being a vet?
I've got a soft spot for people in the military, and so, when we look at partnerships, if somebody's, active duty or a veteran, there's a much lower bar for partnership. I am also a DoD skill bridge provider, and so we are a small company, so there's not very many. We can't handle very many skill bridge interns at once. But if for people who are active duty transitioning, I've had two different skill bridge interns, and I'm bringing the third one on next month. If you're looking to learn more about multifamily and take active role on a team, we can provide that as well. Yeah, if you're a veteran or active duty, looking to partner and become a general partner on one of these deals, reach out to me. If you're getting close to your transition, and you want to do skill bridge, reach out to me as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Brian, it has been a blast having you as our guest today. As we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you,
Mhm.
and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
The best place is LinkedIn. I mean, send me a note on LinkedIn, and I'm much more likely to respond to it. So you want to listen to what I have to say on a regular basis, follow me on LinkedIn, or follow my podcast, Diary of an Apartment Investor. You want to communicate with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, let me know what you're looking for, and if I can help you, I will.
Great, great. Again, Brian, I want to thank you for your time today and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning into the Service to Syndication podcast, where we want to provide value to you in your investing business. Please tune into our next episode where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.